Welcome to the podcast. I am so stoked to have you on and just have you share your story, share your wealth of knowledge and experience. To start off, can you give a little backstory of how you got here in like every sense of the word? Like what brought you to LA? What made you want to be such a part of the health and fitness industry? A little bit of everything.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. Not only to just be a part of your podcast because I really like it, but also because I want to spend more time with you.
Yay.
How did it all start? I really don't even know because it's still wild for me.
Okay.
I'm still like the small town girl that needs to pinch my arm to like, I wake up to palm trees every day. This is wild.
Yeah.
But I was pretty much 8 years old when I got really fascinated about the human body. Mm-hmm. I was watching TV, seeing the Swedish Strongest Man.
Oh, and at 8, what channel was that
on? Just a normal broadcasting thing, and it was kind of big. It was that same time as the Gladiators we had in Sweden too, and I was like, wow. People that strong and fit, that's really cool. I was like super mesmerized. But then, I was a kid, nothing really major happened until I was 13. We moved and we started to renovate our house. And I really dug deep, literally, and helped my dad to really carry the heavy stuff. And I'm like, wow, I can do this. And then my neighbor had like this trucker yard. He had tires, he had logs, he had everything. And I was like, ooh, I'm gonna spend my summer here and like do things. And then I found a gym. Mm-hmm. And I was 14, and the owner of the gym, the only bodybuilder in town, in my very small town, he said, well, you're actually a little bit too young to start, in my opinion, but I will allow you if you allow me to show you. And I still to this day remember when I did my first deadlift, and I'm still hooked on that, and I loved it. But yeah, the years went by. I wasn't consistent. And then I moved to another city, and I found people that was even more into it than I was, and showed me the gym. And at that time, I had just graduated college, or not college, the Swedish version of it. And I was a nurse's aide. And I had 3 years of really studying the human body, and realized, because at the same time my dad had a very heavy disease, and he unfortunately passed away from it. And I just didn't want to be around illness all the time. So I changed it and thought, what can I possibly do that can help people prevent getting sick or sicker?
Yeah.
So I wanted to work on that side. So I also became a personal trainer at the same time as I moved to the new city. And then from then, I have just been in this little wheel of constantly working on myself to be able to help others.
Wow.
So in total, I have been into lifting for 20 years of my life.
Wow.
And 14 of which has been educated and really like deep diving into and being consistent with it.
So it sounds like what you saw on TV was kind of like that first moment of like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Was there anyone around you at that time? And I don't even know what maybe it's like in Sweden for young girls. Like, are sports really popular? What's like the cool thing when you were growing up? And was it similar to what your interests were, or was it completely different?
Completely different. In it's not even a city, my small town, every girl were supposed to play soccer.
Oh.
I don't like that at all. I don't like any ball sports. I was into hockey, but I come from a very big family, and my dad was more like, maybe you can try track and field. I'm like, maybe not. Yeah. I tried for his sake, but he was a marathon runner, and like that type of sportsmanship was more what he kind of supported us in. Mm-hmm. But I was also like, I'm one of 5 sisters that grew up together. I have 1 brother and 1 sister prior to that. So we're 7 kids. There's a lot of music and dancing in my family, and that's pretty much where I was at. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to be taking care of myself. I didn't want to be a bother to my mom and dad and like, hey, can you take me to the practice? Can you do this? We were so many people.
Right.
So I just kind of found what I like to do. And I really liked studying. So I studied and then I walked and I did Pilates. That's pretty much what I did when I grew up.
Yeah.
I never did team sports.
So you did Pilates at what age?
From I think 16, 15, 16 somewhere, before I had the chance to be very consistent with the gym. So yeah,
And
that's crazy.
what was the moment where you were like, okay, this is for me. Like, this is something that I love to do. It obviously has a huge benefit in terms of longevity and health. Like, at what point you were like, this is it for me? Like, there's no other form of exercise that gives me what I get from this.
Like, honestly, I think it was the deadlift.
Yeah.
I was 14.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. But I think also pretty much when I found the community at the new town that I moved to, where my entire friendship, like my relationships were based out of the gym. And like, that's where we hung out because we didn't have any more time because all of us were working all the time. I have a lot of hardworking friends, and I love that because it really resonates with me because I love hard work in all capacity of life. Yeah, I think partially the deadlift, but also in the basement of the gym that I still call my home gym. Yeah.
So you found lifting for you, and then now you coach other people, mainly maybe inspired by your dad and kind of what he, or like losing him inspired you to want to help other people avoid that type of thing. Do you think that you would have maybe found that in Sweden also, or do you think that coming out here made that more possible?
So the thing is, like, I did work in restaurant business for 10 years of my life. I did that as a side thing, or that was my main thing. And my coaching was the side thing from 19 to like 25, I think. I moved to Stockholm. And that's when I, the first time, actually went 100% into personal training. So I was employed by one of the biggest commercial chains in Sweden, the best one for personal training. And I was located in the middle of Stockholm, surrounded by models and high-end people. It was scary because I was like, geez, I am a newbie in this town. I am also, this is my first time really 100% dedicating myself to help others. This is scary, but I wasn't new to it. I still had a really good baggage of it, but I just hadn't done it full time. That was my first try in doing it full time. And it went well, but during the same time I did compete. So I never went 150% of me into it. And I think maybe if I had ended up at a different gym, it might have been a different experience and turnout. But I'm glad that I did get that experience, and it opened a lot of doors, and I got to know so many good people, and I missed that place. But it was also only a period of my life. And then I went back to work for Celsius in another different department than I did before. So and that took a lot of my time. So I needed to step aside. I only had like 2 clients because I tried for the first 6 months to do both. It just couldn't, it was impossible.
Right.
So then I just had 2 online. That's what I did because I have always had like 1 or 2. I always like stuck to that because I really wanted to. And then during this time, I just still felt like something was missing. I loved working for Celsius, and I still do in some capacity, but I am not a corporate person. I want to help this brand, but I also rather want to help the person. I want to be there for the individual. I want to work with their health more so than just selling a can, even though selling the can make someone happy because I know how happy I get from it, but I want to go on a deeper level. So if I would have been still in Sweden, I don't think that I would dare to do the full 180 again because that's what I did, and I did not fully like it. And creating like an online business and coaching and platform and social media in Sweden is a little bit more limited. I will not say that it's impossible, because I have one of my friends is one of the biggest names in Europe. So I'm like, or even in the US too, I guess. So I'm not saying that it's impossible. She did it, and I know if she did it, it's possible.
Yes.
And I'm really impressed by all the work she did, and I look up to her like, I don't know, she is so inspiring, and I'm very thankful to be able to call her.
You got a name drop.
Hannah Öberg.
Oh, nice.
We were colleagues. We also, boom. We were both. We trained together. We competed together. We worked together. So we were like quite close, and we're still close, which I'm very happy for. But so yeah, absolutely, it's doable in Sweden, without a doubt, because Sweden is very international. But for me, I'm talking about for me, I think that I would still be kind of sucked in doing the day-to-day thing, like going to work on that office or going back to restaurant or just going back to be a personal trainer on site, because I wouldn't dare to. When I moved here, I was forced to.
Put the pressure on a little bit of like, you have to make this work.
Yeah. I really needed to, like, it's now or never. Just try it out, see where it flies. And it kind of flew.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
And, you know, touching back on how important health is to you and the health of, you know, your own body, but your clients as well, helping them achieve the healthiest version of them possible.
Yeah.
How do you manage the aesthetic side of things, where there's this fight sometimes of, I really like this look, but this is actually what's healthier for me. So whether that's your own personal experience or with your clients, like, how do you walk that line?
I actually said this on a consultation call I had this morning. That perfect timing. That I really want people to understand that it's such of a mental game to get in shape. In either, like, if someone wants to gain muscle mass, it's a mental game. If someone wants to lose body fat, it's a mental game. If you're not aligned, mind down to your core body, like your core person, it's going to be really hard. And that's, if I didn't work on that on myself, I could not guide another person with the same ordeal. I have been through it. Like, that's why I competed, and it took me pretty much 4 years to get back to a state of mind of like, my body's cool. I like her. It's rad.
Without constantly judging yourself or saying this needs to be better or this needs to change and adjust.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a thing that we need to think about and actually accept, that you always want to change. Fitness, it's not A to B kind of thing. It is a lifestyle, and it's something that you do, and you have to be prepared that you want to change along the way. Even though, let's say that someone wants to lose 30 pounds, because some people are very like, it's the pounds that matters. It's the numbers. But when you lose at 30, you will feel like, no, that was too much or that was too little. I need to change more. Because once you start to see that you are capable, you're not going to stop. And so many people are like, because I am seen as one of the bigger girls at my gym because I have a lot of muscle mass. And they're like, yeah, but you train to get bigger, right? I'm like, I have never trained to get big. It's not a size that's in my head. It's a look. And I am still not satisfied with how my pieces are, but I'm getting there, and I'm accepting the way that it is right now. And I think if you're not there with that thought process of, maybe I will change my mind 1 million times before I'm actually satisfied, you will actually have an easier time to get satisfied with where you are right now.
Yeah.
It's not an A to B thing.
Did you have an experience, especially with competing, where numbers were the focal point of your attention? Or did you always have a little bit more of like a bird's eye view of where you're targeting a look as opposed to numbers on the scale or any of those kind of numerical goals?
I think that I never been very number or digit focused. Because I early on saw that at the beginning of my competing years, I was like, I don't even know in pounds, but like 46 kg on my competition day, which is like 2.2, like 100 and
20, 15, 20.
not even. Yeah, somewhere.
Don't trust that information.
No, don't trust that either. What did I say? Not even 100. So not like, let's say roughly 100 pounds.
Yeah.
On my competition day.
Yeah.
I was like a little bird.
Yeah.
I was tiny.
Did you feel that way on the day, or were you like, this is great, I look my best? Like, was it what you thought it would be once you got there?
I felt fragile.
Okay.
I felt like I was going to break in two, but at the same time I felt like I was in charge, and I felt like, wow, this is so cool.
I did this,
and look how cool it looks when my muscles are so visible. But in hindsight, I need to also understand where my set point is. And that took me 4 years to understand, is that just because I reached that B goal for that specific date, I cannot stay there. And if I do, how will everything in my body work afterwards? Because that's a whole other shebang that people do not realize. When someone is that low on body fat, it's dangerous.
Yeah. And you have all these people on social media or otherwise who are either prepping for a competition or going to extremes to stay there. Yeah. And that's what most people they want.
Yeah.
Like I grew up, and you did too, obviously. Well, I don't know what it was like in Sweden, where, low-rise jeans were really popular. And so everybody was showing their stomachs, and having abs was like the thing. Everybody wanted to have abs. And for some people, you can see them at a higher body fat percentage. For other people, you have to get extremely low body fat in order to acquire that look.
Yeah.
And that could be healthy for someone to be at a higher body fat and still see their abs. But then for somebody else to be at that low body fat, it's not the healthiest. It's not sustainable. So it's kind of figuring out what works for you. And you said it took 4 years to kind of figure out your comfort zone, right? But also the health zone.
Exactly. And be accepted of that, to like love myself again in that shape. Because my body type is of that kind that I very easily gain muscle mass, but I also very easily gain fat mass. And I need to I cannot just like eat whatever, however, when I want to, because I very easily gain that. So if that is not my goal of gaining, I need to just like put a lid on it and just like quote unquote control, which I don't feel longer that I do, but that I felt that I did before. Now I know, because I know I have learned my hunger cues. I have learned what is an appetite, what is cravings, and what is actual physical hunger. There's totally different. So with years, I just realized what it is all about and how to actually use that to my advantage. And it took me so long time, so many trial and errors for my own part, but also like how I help clients.
Right.
And it's so cool.
And it's being able to pull all of these different tools out of your box when working with somebody, because it's not just one way. Not one thing is going to work for everybody.
Exactly.
And in those 4 years, what do you feel like was the hardest for you to accept in terms of, okay, I'm not going to be this competition girl all the time? Like, so what was the hardest thing to accept, and what was kind of the lesson that you learned from it? I'm kind of assuming that learning your hunger cues and those types of things was probably what you resisted in getting to competition, because I know I did. I was tracking everything. I wasn't listening to my body because I was listening to these numbers, because it was a science. It wasn't anything else. I had to just do X, Y, Z. And so you remove the emotional and the connection you have to your body to get competition lean. And then afterwards, I know I had to relearn all of those things. That was like what I learned, but it was so hard mentally, even physically, getting to a healthy place, because I had this perceived, kind of expectation of what
Yeah.
I looked better as.
Yeah. And also like, yeah, but I once been that lean. I should be doing that again. And especially being a front person on social media, showing up the physique and trying to get people inspired by you. But I then realized that, okay, but what is it that I really want to inspire people to feel? And that is what helped me the most, I think, because yes, people think that it's super, super cool to have ripped abs and veins and yada, 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 yada. Yes, it's cool. I find that really cool myself. But I want people to understand what is sustainable and what is reality. And I want them to understand that fitness can be really fun and that is something that really elevates you as a person. And fitness isn't all about six-pack and veins. Fitness is how you perceive yourself, how you actually challenge yourself every single day. And I was like, wow, I cannot walk around and say these stuff and believe it full-heartedly if I at the same time feel like I need to go around shredded. So I went totally off. I was like, okay, I am just going to eat very intuitively. I'm going to follow my body's own vibe. I'm going to listen into what I want to have. And let's see if that make me gain 20 pounds or 2 or even lose 10. I don't know. Let's just go there and see what happens. So for over a year, I did not touch a tracking app. I kind of knew what I ate because when you have been tracking your food for 12 plus years, you know what you're eating. It kind of just stick. And then also when you're trying to teach other people about that, you just know.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, I'm like, ooh, I am starting to get hungry to try to see how I will look if I cut down a little bit. How would I feel? And then I realized again what fitness is all about. It's about challenging yourself. And I found the love for it again. And I have never done such an easy cut. And I've been on it for a very long time now because I want to make it like super, super manageable.
Yep.
And I also have a YouTube channel that tries a lot of food. So I didn't want to stop doing that just because I felt like I want to try to get shredded again, just because I want to see if I can do it. But again, the core thing with all of this is that I have to accept myself at my set point. Otherwise, I cannot guide other people into feeling that. Because if I wanted to be a competition coach, I could do that. But that's not what I feel is sustainable.
Right.
And I don't feel like that can save people.
Yeah.
It's an extreme sport. And people forget about that. People think it's a beauty pageant or whatever they feel, or something that can make them insta famous. But it is an extreme sport, and they need to be aware of that. So whenever a newcomer asks me, like, hey, do you have any tips and tricks? I'm like, keep your coach after your competition, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
They're like, what? I'm like, keep your coach close when you have been competing, because that is when the real challenge starts.
Yeah. It's wild how influential competing can be in guiding your mindset moving forward.
Yeah.
Do you ever look back at that time and that's kind of like your guiding force of, I don't want to feel like that again, where you maybe weren't as strong or you didn't have the energy to do a lot of things? Is that something that you look back on and you're like, I don't think I want to do that again? Or do you think maybe you would compete again?
I love the challenge of competing. I love the feeling of being hungry. I don't like the restrictive part because how it makes you feel months later on down the line. I love stepping up on stage. It's really fun. So I should never say that I will never compete again, but I doubt that I will.
Yeah.
But I don't regret anything. The one thing that I do regret is that I didn't ask my coach the questions that I might have needed, but I couldn't have known because I didn't know.
Right.
But yeah, that is pretty much the only regret that I have. It's like, why didn't I keep her closer? Why didn't I ask those uncomfortable questions? Or why didn't I get more personal with her and told her like how I actually felt or why I struggled? So that is what I kind of regret a little bit.
It makes me think of probably just your personality at that time, and maybe something that you've changed over the last however many years of you were very yes ma'am, no ma'am, whatever you tell me to do, you know, not questioning authority. Was that the environment that you grew up in? The role that you played in your big family?
So funny side note, I was called the president of my family.
Oh.
But I did have a very strong authority figure in my dad. And I still to this day have a huge respect of authority figures. And sometimes I get uncomfortable because I don't know how to handle them. But I also see my childhood and the experience that I had in my family as really good experiences that can teach me on how to communicate with them if I just pay attention to how my own reactions are towards those kind of people. And often if I find a person very like a negative authority, I always have to ask myself, what emotions are coming back? How do I react to this environment? Why is he or she starting this within me? And I think I was not capable of doing that in my 20s. Right. Some like working with so many different people for 14 years of my coaching career has taught me so much about personalities and psychology. Not only about other people, but about myself on how to react to people. And it's just scary sometimes. And I'm like, I still get frustrated for being so impacted by
strangers
that has a very big authority. Because
it's not just your clients, it's not just people that you meet in real life, it's also these people who don't know you on the internet, because you have amassed a huge following on social media, and that doesn't come without its downfalls.
No.
So is your response to that more so that this is about them, it's not about me, it's about them?
Definitely.
And do you let it go, or are you like a keyboard warrior responding and like, because I get so much of it too on like stupid stuff like food, that people just have such an opinion and such an emotional response to that you're like, it's not that deep.
Exactly. It's food. Dude, it's food.
Right.
So yeah, gosh. It is pretty much depending on how my daily mood is. Sometimes I can just be like on the war zone, but I always respond and reply in a very mature and like educational way.
Do you have to, it sounds like you have to catch yourself sometimes. Like you have an initial response and then you have your political response.
And that's why I was called the president of my family, because first, so my brain is very hyperactive and I think 15,000 thoughts in 1 second. And sometimes I cannot contain myself. So I burst out. But being on social media, since I'm behind the screen,
you have the time.
I have the time because I can start typing and I'm like, no, get a grip, Ida, because
you're like dogging yourself.
Yeah, like no. Pause for a second. You can go back to that later on, and then during that time, when I say I will go back to that later on, maybe I have the possibility to see 10 very beautiful comments and fuel myself, fill my cup, and then go back to that answer and like, hey, I understand that we do not like have the same opinion about this, but here's my viewpoint of it. I respect yours, but on my page, we don't spread negativity. So if you don't like that, the door right there, I don't need you. Because quite frankly, I need to be okay with them coming at me, because they will.
Yeah.
People are bored. It's okay. It's not upon me. And if people react to things that I say, then yes, maybe I'll second guess what I'm saying at first. And then like, but would I even have posted that if I didn't think that? No. So that is actually one thing that I have said. Many people ask me about social media and like, how do you even start? I'm like, start by being you.
Yeah.
Because if you're pretending to be someone else, this this job is going to be so much harder because it's already hard.
Mhm.
It's so hard. And if you need to fake it, it's going to be like triple that.
Is that how you feel like you started on social media, or were you a little bit more reserved when you first started trying to curate an image, especially as a professional in the health and fitness space?
Yeah.
I know I came into it with like, I need to look and act this way. But over time, maybe that's maturity. Maybe that's just getting comfortable with the platform. I also learned the same thing. Like, you have to be vulnerable, act with honesty, because when you do, you're not going to regret the things that you post or the things that you say, because it's just you.
Yeah.
And it's honest, and it's, you know, you might not get everything right, but it's coming from a good place. And when you come from a good place, you're not going to, no one can take that from you.
And I think that's really, really important for me, because sometimes I want to be more professional than I come out as. I want to be, I feel like one of my biggest wishes is to be respected, and that people understand that I do have a lot of knowledge. I just want to do it very lightheartedly, because there's so many people out there that are really known, or like educated in matters, and they are also very strong in their opinions, and they dare to speak it out. I could have taken another approach on my social media content. I could have been very educational, but I decided to go on some kind of a more
lighthearted. Fitness is fun. It's not just about the most optimal way to do things. Like, you can find that middle ground between this is fun and great for my goals.
Exactly. And I think that is what resonates the most with me and my own brand, that to find balance, you have to kind of be balanced. And if I always try to educate, I don't always think that it will come out the right way, because I will be forcing myself. I rather tell my education in a story. Like, if not in a story on Instagram, I'm talking about like as storytelling. Because in some way, I think that makes it stick with people a little bit more than if I sit here and I talk about how your microbiome is doing this or that to that bacteria that is called this way, and they have 15 different lines here and there. It's just too complicated for the common person. It's even too complicated for me.
You're going to lose them from the jump.
Yeah, and I just want to be, and that's what makes it hard sometimes, because it's sometimes hard to sound very knowledgeable when you also am a little bit goofy. So it's a little bit of a,
You walk the line.
I walk the line. It's real hard.
No, I get it. Do you feel any pressure to be a certain way on social media, whether it is to like lean into like your more goofy side based on the people that you're surrounded by? I know you have like a great community here in LA, and you go to Golds and you see a lot of the same people all the time. Like, is there a certain way that you tend to be like in that space versus other spaces?
I think most of us are a little bit of a chameleon, if they're also very good on handling people. I feel like I have different personalities, but all of them come from a place of I only want to do good. I also learned that from being a waitress for so many years, because you meet so many different people at every table. So at one night, you might wear like 50 different faces to apply to the person that you meet. And sometimes that makes me feel fake, but that's not the whole idea, because I still have my same thoughts. I still have my same emotions. I have everything that's Ida is still there. I just talk about it in a different way. But yeah, it's sometimes Goals has become a place where I go in and work. Many believe that social media, like, they are only working out all day long, and then
it's so easy. You just film your workout.
Yeah, it's like so hard. Like, but then you have to put in the fact that there's other people around. You also have to place in the fact that there's people that's looking up to you and want to ask you questions, or maybe you even have clients at that gym that needs your focus. And I don't even train people on site anymore. I haven't done that since I moved here. Do I miss it? Yeah, it would be fun. But I also am really, really dedicated to my online clients. And if they're there and have a question, of course, I'm going to answer it.
Mhm.
So since you're a social media person, you're always on call.
I was going to say, are you always looking around a little bit of like, I have this online presence and there's this whole idea of like getting canceled. Like, are you hyper aware of everything that's going on around you almost all the time? Or do you feel like you're able to shut it off outside of the gym, or to shut it off when you're like at a coffee shop? Or do you feel like there's always a part of you that's looking around like,
I don't know. That was a hard question.
I know.
Because I feel like since social media for me is just showcasing me and my life, I am me 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And I mean, yeah, 4 years in, or almost 5 years of living here, I do meet a lot of people that I've seen so many times before and that I have been talking to, and they feel like they know me because I share so much about myself. Sometimes I'm shocked if a cop drives by and he shouts from the car like, "Hey, Ida," I'm like, is that even a good thing?
Or you're like, do I know you personally?
Are you maybe from Golds?
Should I know your name?
Should I know your name? And then I freak out, and then maybe it's just like actually someone who's following me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to know each and every one person that follows me because I appreciate them so much. But I'm like, also, I am just one person. You guys are so many now, and I just have 24 hours a day, just like you. And I need to be hyper aware because I want to be hyper aware. Right. I want to be present because this life,
you're so grateful.
Now. I am extremely grateful. And I don't think that I say that often enough, because this life, I never in a million years thought that it could happen. I visualized it, I dreamt it, and I said, that is what I want. And I took as many routes possible to get where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And still it feels like it just happened.
You're still you. It hasn't changed you. It's just somehow you got transported to this place where this is what you do for a living.
It's just, it's nuts. And I'm like, when is someone going to wake me up and say like, hey, back to reality?
Yeah.
Because I love what I do, but I am consumed with my work. It's what I do. And people like, don't you do anything else? Is like, don't you have any hobbies? I'm like, this is my hobby.
Right. Right. I love this. And it's also my job.
Yeah. And some people can live like that.
Yeah.
And some people don't like that. And that's also okay.
Yeah. One of my biggest insecurities is meeting people who maybe have a better idea of who I am than I know who they are. So if someone who follows me online, like my biggest insecurity is letting them down.
Yes, I agree.
And I mean, I have so many insecurities, but I'm not controlled by them like I was as a kid. Yeah. I mean, growing up here, all I wanted was to be thin and to look like the women in the magazines and the shows and the things that I grew up idolizing, right? Like I wanted to be that.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm older, I put way less pressure on myself to try and be like somebody else, because that's quite literally never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
But, the insecurity that I used to have for my body and the way that I looked, it manifested into an eating disorder and all of these toxic habits.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, it doesn't manifest into those things. And I wouldn't say it's an age thing. I think it's a maturity thing. I've worked on myself thing.
Yeah.
But I do have this newfound insecurity of showing up for people and displaying my gratitude for them in a way that I don't know I can accurately explain to someone I meet for a brief moment, whether it's at the beach or at the gym. It's that really difficult thing that I'm trying to express to you. Like, you came up to me, said hi, and I'm just so grateful, but I don't think that I can even express that to you in a moment. Right. So it's that insecurity that follows me after of like, oh my God, did they think that I was like nice? Like, I hope that they liked me as much as I liked them. Like and I don't know if that comes from being a kid and wanting to live up to these people that I idolized. Maybe it comes from that insecurity of like wanting to be like someone that I thought was cool.
And now you're the cool one.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Cool.
When thinks they're actually that cool.